there, my sweet friends. I hope you're all doing well. I have a super sweet little pocket folio to share today with an Easter theme. And if you think that means I am rushing the next holiday, you would be exactly correct. It is cold here, y'all. When I got to work this morning, it was 3 degrees out with a real feel temp of a -15. So yes, I am thinking forward towards spring because I refuse to accept that it's winter. I am no longer participating, so we're just going to move on to Easter. Now, the question of the day is, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, what is the actual temp, and what is the real fill temp? So that's a 3-part question, and I'm really looking forward to reading all of your comments. Before we get started, I just wanted to share with you the inside of this folio because I think it is just as beautiful as the outside. We do have some pockets here with some decorative inserts, as well as some printables from my shop and beautiful flowers from Really Reasonable Ribbons. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we'll make it together. I'm creating today with papers from my stash in the oh so sweet Funny Bunny Easter tags in yellow, printable from my shop. Now originally this did have 9 tags and I selected the 3 that I wanted to use, and I cut these out with a border of the white showing so that it would resemble more of a packaged ephemera, and I'm going to use this on the cover as well as on the inside of the folio. I have 110-pound cardstock for the cover. I do want this to be very sturdy, and I also want it to be the same size as a standard greeting card with just a little bit of extra room built into that spine to accommodate the paper layers inside. So I'm starting with a measurement of 6.5 by 10.5. I scored it at 5 and also 5.5. So this will be that standard size, and we'll have plenty of room inside. This is going to be the cover, but I do want to add some pocket pages. So my second piece is going to be 65-pound weight cardstock now, and it measures 9 high by 5 wide. I put it on my scoreboard and scored it at 6.5. So this will cover the entire page on the cover. I do need to add some pattern paper on the inside before I seal that up. So I have chosen the papers from my stash along with a cardstock border, and I chose gray because I thought that would work best for any kind of tone of yellow that I brought in, so that it would help to anchor some of those lighter colors and also really work well with the yellows. So my cardstock measurement is going to be 6 3/8 by 4 7/8, and that pattern paper is 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. I do want to add this now before we seal up that pocket. So I'm just going to get a border of our cardstock as well as the pocket page, and that will be well secured between the layers. Now I want to add an additional strip of cardstock to seal up the sides of this pocket. So I have my 65-pound weight cardstock. Once again, it's cut to be 2.5 inches high by 7 inches wide. And I'm just going to lay this onto my scoreboard and then score on the edges of where the outside of the pocket page is. That way I can wrap that around and secure it, and that will hold the sides of my pocket. So for this step, I am going to utilize my double-sided tape. If you just heard those footsteps coming down, that would be the tuck hubby. And I also want to give him a big shout out for getting us some space heaters so that I can film in the basement without being frozen solid to the table. So thanks for that, tuck hubby. Appreciate everything you do to keep our channel going. Now that I have my flap secured around the back, you can see I have created a nice pocket. And so I'm going to remove the double-sided tape backing from the back of the page. And then of course we do want to utilize our 2 glue combo. So I'm also coming in with my Tombow. Then I want to position this so that I can rest this side up to that score line. That way I know that I have it positioned exactly where I want, and the folio will fold properly. And so I'm going to fold that up and just rest that into the corner and along the score line. Then I'll just position that evenly across the bottom and the sides. And now we have our pocket page added, and this did also add extra layers of paper, so this will be even more sturdy. And the next thing I want to do is cover my pocket. And so I've got my cardstock cut to be 2 3/8 of an inch high by 4 7/8 of an inch wide. And the pattern paper is 2 1/4 by 4 3/4. And that gives us those nice borders again. Because this pocket wraps around, you will have some additional room for other flat keepsakes or mementos in that pocket, and so you can really add more personal items if you choose. Now, I do want to include the back on this before we add any more of those dimensional layers, and so this is just the same measurement as our full size page on the inside, and I'm choosing a bright and cheerful sunny polka dot for that. Okay, next up is to decorate our pocket. And because I have all of those cute tags, I did decide to cut more of them out. As you can see, or maybe not, doesn't always come across easily, but I have added some stickles to some of these details, just where I want to accent the little elements that are already on that tag. And you can see that I did cut that out with a border of the white cardstock. And then for the inside tags, I added it to a piece of 110-pound cardstock so that it could extend beyond the top of that pocket, and it will be very sturdy. Now I also want to include a small little doily here just as an extra added detail, because this is fairly fragile with little bits cut out. I do want to add a layer of cardstock to the back so that when I add my pattern paper onto the front, none of the adhesive will go through. And so I did cut these out with the same size circle die so that I knew they would match up perfectly. What I want to do first is remove the tape backing from the white cardstock. Then I'll just press my die cut doily onto that so that it is centered well. Then I'll just add some additional adhesive to my pattern paper circle and then line that right up. And now I will be set on it being very sturdy, and I know that adhesive will not go through those intricate die cut pieces. So I want to position this so that it extends beyond the top of that pocket. And so I want to focus putting the adhesive closer to the bottom so that it will be just secured only to the pocket. And of course, we do want to continue with our 2 glue combo, especially for pieces that hang over the top. Now I am just placing these so that I can see where I want that to go before I add anything. Now I can secure this. Before I add my tag, I do want to include some die cut leaves. So I just use some scrap green paper to cut these out just to make it easy. And we'll add that with a little bit of hot glue. Now you can see that I only need adhesive from here down. And so that is where I will focus my double-sided tape and Tombow combination for this tag. I also want to include some of these very small little sweetheart blossoms. I picked these up from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I think they are just dimensional enough to be a nice accent, but they're not going to cause too much bulk on the inside. And we will add some additional flowers to our inserts to kind of counter the amount of space this takes up so that our folio will have a nice shape. So I'm going to add these with hot glue as well. I'm just making a nice little cluster of 3 on top of my die cut leaves. Okay, so there are my flower accents on my pocket page, and I have prepared a second page with the same measurements and the same process for this side of my folio. And you can see that I've got my tag and my die cuts as well as my little flowers. So I will add this with my 2 glue combo to this side of the folio. I'm going to use that same technique for positioning this exactly in the right position along my score line. So I'm just folding that upward, and then I'm just resting the corner of that page into that score line, and then I'll press that into place, keeping it even along the bottom and the sides. And then I'll press that just for a bit so that I'll have a good contact with that tombow. And now you can see the inside is done. I do want to include some inserts for my pockets. I have created these with the offcuts from the cover, so I know all of these will coordinate well. And I did start with 110-pound cardstock for the base. And so this is 5.5 high by 4 inches wide. And I just wanted it to come in and out easily. So that is why it's just a little bit smaller. The cardstock measurement is 5 3/8 by 3 7/8. And the pattern paper is 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. Now you can add your pictures or anything on the front and do some journaling on the back so that you could use this as a non-traditional style scrapbook or any kind of memory keeping. And that would go into these pockets. I have one for each side. So one additional detail that I do want to add, you see when I fold up my page here, those flowers will be adding a small amount of bulk to the inside, just the right amount to fit in our 1/2 inch spine. But I want to support the top of these tags as well. So it will keep a nice shape on this side and not compress too much on the top. So what I want to do is utilize some of this beautiful taffeta ribbon from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I just want to clip off a small portion. I'll have one for each tag. And then I also want to utilize my tiny attacher. I'm going to take my insert here and fold that ribbon trim back onto itself to create a loop. I'll hold it in place, and then I'll come in with my tiny attacher and use this to secure this loop to the top of my tag. And I'll do the same for this one as well, but for the other side, I want to have my loop on the outside corner again. So we'll just repeat that process. Get our loop positioned and then attach it. Now I'm going to utilize more of those sweetheart blossoms, and I'll just take out 3 for each insert. That's how I had the amount for the pocket. And so I'll just take these out. You see they all come on these nice stems, and I did get these from Really Reasonable Ribbon as well. So I want to put 3 on the top here, and that will give some additional accent as well as conceal that staple in. So I'm just cutting that off from the stem very, very close to the flower so that it doesn't create too much additional unnecessary bulk. And let's just take 3 for the other insert as well while we're here. These two have a small amount of dimension for their center, but it's not so bad, and I think the colors will work perfectly for a more spring inspired book. Oftentimes I switch out the yellow centers for a double head stamen that I can use to better coordinate with my projects, but for springtime projects, these often work perfectly, so there's no need to change them. Just putting another little cluster of 3 like we did on the pocket. Then I'll repeat that process for this side as well. So let's bring our folio back in and add these to our pockets. And I think those look so sweet with those sweetheart blossoms on top. And now you can see when we fold it up, this is going to give us the right amount of bulk to support the top of the folio as well. So let's go ahead and work on the cover. So I've got that polka dot to match what is on the back, and I'm just going to add that with the same cardstock. I also have a layering pattern. This is not necessary, but I really wanted to kind of break up a little bit of that busy background so that the flowers would look a little bit nicer. And so I'm just adding that, utilizing the same cardstock border that is already there. And of course I do want to add a beautiful doily. So I'm just going to layer that over the top as well. I have a die cut of my cardstock and then the pattern that was on the inside so that I can incorporate a few more layers for the front. And you can see that I did add those with a foam spacer, so I'm getting even a little bit more dimension for that. And I have my tag here now. Isn't that the sweetest little bunny with a flower crown? I don't know if that will come in, but I did add some stickles to the details so that it would have a little bit of sparkle. I did add that to a piece of heavy cardstock and cut it back out, leaving my white border. And then I added an eyelet and some spacers to the back and some twine. So that is going to be the focal image for my cover. And I also have a beautiful little arrangement of flowers from Really Reasonable Ribbon. These are chrysanthemums and cherry blossoms. And like for the flowers on the inside, I did go ahead and leave the centers that were already there because that yellow will coordinate with my project. I've got some layers of die cut foliage here, my netting and loopy twine bows. And I did go for that same taffeta ribbon for the cover as well. So this is going to go along the bottom and kind of anchor this arrangement. And then I've got a couple little charms here, just some sweet little bunnies, and I want to have them resting on top of that circle die cut. So I'll just hold those into place. Pull that string through a little bit of hot glue, and then I'll remove the excess string. And then I'll tap that with a button to hide those cut ends. Now, I would normally also consider adding some sequins, but I think that is just the right amount of detail for our cover. So we're going to call this one done. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. You can find links for our socials as well as the printable I used here from my shop and the trims and flowers from Really Reasonable Ribbon in the description below. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!